Welcome to BladeBound Saga.
Welcome to Duality, a Daggerheart community podcast where we bring together creators, influencers, and storytellers within the Daggerheart space. This series is all about exploring the heart of the game by connecting it to the people who bring it to life. I'm Daniel, your host, and this show is proudly brought to you by BladeBound Saga. In each episode of Duality, we invite a special guest to create a Daggerheart character based on their real-life self. Together, we'll explore their choices, traits, experience, building a character that represents their own journey. However, what makes Duality stand out is our guest will also face an encounter at the end where they'll use the character that they made to battle an adversary at the end of the episode. Along the way, we'll roll Duality Dice to answer questions about the stories of their triumph and struggles through what we know in Daggerheart as hope and fear. So please join me in welcoming today's guest, Austin.
Hope, fear. You roll the dice. Duality.
Austin, welcome.
Thank you.
To Duality. Everyone that has seen a previous episode knows that this is just going to be a conversation based on a character that you've made. But before we dive into any of these questions, how did you join tabletop? How did you get connected with Daggerheart and whatnot?
Yeah. I think for so many people, shows like Critical Role were really, really influential. I mean, kind of bringing this new wave of tabletop role-playing games, and especially with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Critical Role actually wasn't how I got into the scene at all. It was something that I discovered once I got there, and it was wonderful. And I've been a critter since almost the beginning of campaign 1, I think, like Briarwood's era, something like that.
Yeah.
But before then, or around the same time, I guess, I had been aware of Dungeons and Dragons for a long time. I've been a nerd for a long time. I've been in nerd culture, and that was always like the thing of, oh, this is too nerdy for me. Like, this is the thing that I see that is like, oh, you're in your parents' basement and that's where you're going to live for the rest of your life. I can't do that. And that was just how I viewed it for the longest time. And it wasn't until college where a friend of mine, we would watch a bunch of stuff, and right around, like the mid 2010s, maybe something around there were some episodes of Community that were running that were like D&D episodes of Community. And they were one of the first shows that I had seen that had really done D&D crossovers. And we were big fans of Community. And he just one day was like, all right, we're just going to do it. We're going to try it. And so me and my buddies, we all got together and we played some, and we just like instantly fell in love. And I started out playing a druid, which is going to play into the class choice later. But that was my very first class, my very first character. And I very quickly ended that campaign and was just so hungry for more that I went out and learned how to be a DM and ran immediately a level 1 to 20 game with my players. And so I jumped straight into the deep end on that one, and have been there ever since.
I definitely share the sentiment of this was too nerdy growing up, because I was like, you know what, Pokemon, go for it. Anime, yes. Video games, let's do it. Dungeons and Dragons, that's a little too much, maybe. Like, I think I teetered on Magic the Gathering as close as I got until, similar like you, until college.
Yeah, it just had this stigma around it. And for so long, I think it really had that just remnant. And especially for so many people, I think in the tabletop community are like from a Christian or religious background, and had that pushed onto them from like their parents and the culture and just everything there. It was like, no, this is bad. This is satanic. This is evil. This is demon summoning. And like, it's funny to laugh at now because we're like, what were we thinking? But that's really how it was talked about.
Yeah.
Man.
And depending on the party, the summoning demons part may or may not be true.
I mean, yeah, we've all summoned our demons in time, but you know, that's just how it goes.
All right.
Maybe they were right after all.
So before we jump into the character sheet, we do start off with rolling your first duality. So Austin, go ahead and roll me duality for your first duality question.
Yeah, perfect. And I'm going to show off my dice just because I want everybody to show off their dice. I think that is like one of my favorite things. I think Rachel did it. I don't know how many other people did, but I've got for my duality dice, I've got a one of the Dispel dice. That is one of my absolute favorites. It's just gorgeous and beautiful. And then my Fear dice is actually one that I had made, or actually had given to me. It was custom made in the colors of Javelin Entertainment, which is the YouTube channel that I created to host all of my D&D 5e live plays, and now it'll be just general tabletop role-playing live plays. But it's in those colors, and so it's been super cool and super fun, and I've had it forever.
That's awesome. First, shout out to Dispel Dice.
Yes.
Because their dice are just so great.
So pretty.
But also having custom dice. I don't know if I'm there yet. I thought I was a dice goblin or whatever, but now I think about it, I don't think I have custom dice, which means I need to get some.
Yeah, I counted it the other day because me and a friend she just sent me a picture and she's like, I ended up with like 260 dice that I counted out. And I was like, holy smokes, that sounds like a lot. But I feel like I have more dice than you, so maybe I should count. And it ended up being, I think, exactly like 350, like on the nose. It was wild. And so I have too many.
Yeah.
I've told myself I'm not buying anymore until I can give some away or something, because it's all on the shelf behind me. It's just stacks of dice underneath the books.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, let's roll it.
All right, let's see what we got. Oh, well, that's a fun start. We have 2 on the hope, 6 on the fear. That is an 8 with fear.
8 with fear. Okay.
Yeah, we're starting
8
spicy.
with fear. I'll take that fear to start. And with that, okay, what is a skill or a hobby that you've in general struggled with? Or struggled to like really kind of come to? Like, I feel like as GMs, like we all kind of take hodgepodge stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's always with GMs, like, I don't know how to do that.
The funny thing is as I've been becoming, because I jumped right into being a game master. Like I didn't get very much time as a player, and I still struggle to be a player. I'm very much the full-time GM in my group. And so I've struggled a lot to have things that I think a lot of players take for granted, like those deep emotional connections, that like character growth, that like one character that was like your first character, or the one that you got to play through for the first time that you really connected to. I didn't have a whole lot of that. And so I really, for a long time, struggled to get a deeper level of connection with my NPCs and with my stories. And so that was something that I had to put a lot of work and effort into. And I've actually done a lot of like studies on things like games and movies and TV shows of like, what are the characters that I feel those connections to, and why do I feel those connections? And diving into things like film studies on that to try and get better at the game. And a lot of that has actually taken form into some of the products that I've been able to create recently, and some of the games that we've been able to do, which has been cool.
Yeah, because I think that sometimes as game masters, we tend to have very similar traits to like a story writer or like a script writer, where they have a lot of the same times, like we're doing very similar things. But I think the hard part is we are always building something to just be destroyed. Ultimately, like every single one of our adversaries, our BBEGs are going to be destroyed. And so I'm right there with you. Like sometimes I want to build a further connection, but it doesn't quite land, or like quite land the way that I know my players are with their one character.
And I think it's just like the breadth too, because when you're a GM, a DM, you build so many different characters, and you've got so many stories that you're kind of keeping track of, and you're wanting to also have those moments where you like sit back and let your players go, that sometimes I just forget my NPCs are there and need to be commenting, because I'm like, my players have got this, like I don't need to provide any input here. And so it's hard to maintain those deeper relationships sometimes.
Oh, the worst part is when your party adopts an NPC and then they adopt another one and another one, and you're like, you're talking. They've been saying and they're just watching this whole time. All right, so let's jump into the first part in our first segment, which is your class, your subclass, and then your ancestry and community. I want to ask first about community, because I feel like that speaks a little bit more to like your upbringing.
Sure.
You chose Orderborn.
I did.
Give me a description as to why Orderborn, and like it comes with some traits and extra values too.
It does. It's got some bonus content in there. I felt like this one, I wasn't sure how many people would pick this. And so I wasn't sure if it would be a unique aspect, but for me, it kind of fit the best. There were a lot of the kind of communities that are in Daggerborn lean really hard into like a fantasy or a background, and like lean into an established community. And in my background, my community wasn't established, but it wasn't like nomadic enough to be Wanderborn either. And so I moved a lot. I was in 10 different houses by the time I was in high school, but it was all in 2 cities. And so it was a lot of movement. It was a lot of like instability and change on like a micro level, but not on the macro level. And so I didn't get to experience a whole lot of different cultures. I just was never feeling like comfortable in one spot. And the thing that was kind of consistent, as I mentioned it, I was brought up in a really religious background. And so I was constantly involved in that. And I think a lot of people were and have very mixed experiences. I had very mixed experiences. But the one thing that was really consistent was kind of the values that my parents instilled into me. And so a lot of that was just kind of generally how to be a good person, I guess, and how to treat people right. And so I took the dedications because Orderborn has like 3 dedications that are like your guidelines and how you get certain bonuses. And so I took like the 3 things that I remember from my parents telling me. And they all kind of had the same theme where they were do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Be like a duck and let it roll off your back. And one person cuts and the other person chooses. And that was the guideline for me and my sister of whenever we were splitting food, whenever we wanted cake, whenever we wanted dessert, one person would cut it, the other person would choose. And all of those are really like, think about other people, like, but don't let them hold you down, and be able to build people up, be able to kind of be that stalwart support that is consistent and constant. And so I had like this really strong family structure, even though I had a lot of change going on in my life. And I feel like that, as far as like a community goes, was the closest thing that I could find. And I also thought it was fun, where I imagine a lot of other people had those sayings, if not those exact ones, very similar ones that their parents would just yell off. And I've got a stepdaughter now. And so I find myself feeling that need to say those same things, even though I got so frustrated hearing them as a kid. So they're very much instilled in my memory.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I think even taking like those specific phrases that your parents would tell you is incredibly unique. And I think the extra flavor on top of Orderborn, that 2 people would be Orderborn, but for totally different reasons because of it. And I think that's really great. Now, ancestry. I thought this was awesome, because I think some people just like put mixed ancestry, giving the word, tell me how to pronounce it. I think I know how to. And then tell me what these 2 are combined mechanically or in the game and why they speak to you.
So the funny thing is the things in the game are not what it is. And so there's like 2 answers here. There's like the mechanics answer, and then there's the name. Because if you didn't know, in Daggerheart, you can rename your mixed ancestry to whatever you want. And so I gave it the name Meximernicorn, which is Mexican mermaid unicorn.
There's not what I thought the mix was at all then. I was so off.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was Mexican American unicorn.
Oh, okay.
Mermaid, I mean, so I'm not totally off.
Yeah.
But the mer was like American in my head, but mermaid is nowhere near where I was at. So now I'm really interested.
Yeah. So, and what I really was looking for is there's no aquatic races in Daggerheart right now. And there's no like centaur or anything. If there had been those, that's what I would have picked for this, and it would have been an easy question because of that name. What I ended up picking were endurance from giant. I'm 6'3", I'm very tall, and I've never been fast. I've never been super strong. But if you put me on a mountain, I have no problems. And so I thought endurance was really appropriate there. I also took unshakable from furbolgs. I've always really loved furbolgs because they are seen as these like relaxing, calming kind of friends to everybody. And the unshakable trait, just that person who can persevere through everything, who's always going to be kind of that something that you can count on. I always like to be that for my friends, for the people in my life, be that reliable piece. And so that was what kind of spoke to me. So those traits were what spoke to me and the things of what I ended up selecting. But this name is very unique. It's this super odd ball name, but it's stuck with me for literally half of my life. Like, so in high school, I was talking with one of my friends, and I happened to be adopted, and I convinced one of my gullible friends that I was born on a cruise ship. I'm very much Hispanic, and my parents are very white. And so this, for whatever reason, it just landed, and they were convinced. And for like 6 months, they thought that I had grown up on a cruise ship. And so this ended up evolving into the mermaid aspect. And I guess one day I had my hair like spiked up in a certain way when I had short hair, and they were just, the name Meximernicorn just manifested out of nowhere. And when I tell you this name caught on like wildfire, like it is absurd. I brought my high school yearbook just to show you how serious this was. They wrote it, they drew the picture on my yearbook of a Meximernicorn. This is not made up. This is a thing.
That's so great.
This is such a constant name in my life that it like got mentioned at my wedding. It's how I sign off to all of my friends. It's how I appear in their phones. Like, it is the weirdest nickname that has stuck with me for so long.
That is
Yep.
absolutely that's amazing. Wow. Okay, that's so great. I don't even know how to respond, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna segue, I guess.
I got more WTF moments in this character sheet. You just wait.
Great, man. This is gonna be great. We just got started too. So classes, you just like you did with mixed ancestry, multi-class.
Yeah.
Which one is your base class, and which one is the subclass, I guess, or the secondary class between Druid and Bard for you?
So Druid is the base that I chose, and then Bard was the multi-class. And I had to multi-class in this. I almost always multi-class. It's like my go-to thing. It's what I really enjoy in game mechanics, is finding the weird ways that things fit together and the unusual combos and the just strange things that nobody thinks about. I've had characters where especially in 5e, I've taken 4 classes on a character before. So that's just, it had to be done. And when I was looking at the classes, there were so many different options. And I started to look at like domains first. And in school, so my background is engineering. I went to engineering school, and I've never really been like the smart kid in how I view myself, but everybody else has called me really smart. And it's because I learn fast, but I don't retain. And so my knowledge is not high. And so I wasn't drawn to like codex, but that like idea of being able to get something quickly and being able to move through and understand it and learn it fast has resonated with me. And so I was drawn to Arcana a lot. And so I ended up kind of thinking about going down the route of like sorcerer eventually, but I also do a lot of stuff outdoors. I'm involved in my stepdaughter's Girl Scout troop. I was an Eagle Scout. I do camping all the time. I do backpacking and mountain climbing. And so I liked this aspect of like the ranger. And for me, Druid was just kind of the perfect combination of sorcerer and ranger. And then on top of that, it just happened to be the first class that I ever played in 5e up too. So that's how I kind of landed on Druid.
Makes
Bard
sense.
is to kind of represent where I am now in my life. D&D and tabletop role-playing games, and now Daggerheart has become a really great way for me to express myself. And I call myself a reforming introvert, because I really was that like quiet kid who never said anything, who was always like blending into the background in high school. And through tabletop role-playing games, as well as some other things, I've really been able to kind of expand how I communicate, how comfortable I am in front of crowds and talking to people and meeting new people. And that's partly been to such a warm and welcoming community, but also kind of just getting familiar with things that I feel good at. And I feel really good at this aspect of storytelling and this aspect of building a game and communicating with my friends. It's like all of my favorite things to do. And so I loved the wordsmith aspects of Bard and kind of using that to capture kind of the things that I love about being a game master, dungeon master.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think for those who have multi-classed, you're in good company of like the multi-class thing that you pick, or the multi-class class that you pick, is that later in life discovery.
Yeah.
And I think that makes total sense. And even in the actual game, that is actually what happens. You get it way later. So that's awesome. So let's jump into our second roll of the night before we jump into your traits and stats.
Okay. Ooh, okay. We got a hope. That is a 17 with hope.
17 with hope. Go ahead and add that hope. Your question with a 17 with hope is a little bit more tabletop focused. What is your favorite system or mechanic in any tabletop RPG?
So I have a lot of like weird tastes in like grabbing things and trying to match them over to games that my players will actually play. And there are some games that I found that are just have really, really cool twists on what they do with their mechanics. One thing that I really loved, and it probably has a lot to do with me loving multi-classing so much, but in the Cypher game mechanics, they have this thing called flavor. And it's basically you take kind of your class, or in Cypher, they call it your type, I believe. And so you take like your class and you give it this flavor of like, how do you interpret a fighter or a monk or a paladin or whatever it is that you're playing? Like, what is your spin that you're putting on this to give it your own personality? And I just thought that was really great. It not only opens up so many doors mechanically, because it kind of gives you the ability to kind of take from wherever you want, but it also just represents this really unique aspect to get personality and character decisions out. And when I played Cypher, I played like a tinker. And so I think I took like, it was called like a speed flavor. And so my tinker, even though they were really good at like gadgets and things, did all of that to enhance them to have like super speed and to like climb up walls and things. And so it was like this really unique take on almost building somebody that acted like a rogue type persona, but built with very different mechanics. And so I love that flavor aspect. And then I'm also I love me some feat trees, and the Star Wars, I think it's Fantasy Flight games, if I remember right, is what it is. But they do like Edge of Empire. It's a whole Star Wars
Sure.
tabletop RPG, and they have these beautiful feat trees, and I've rebuilt a lot of those feat trees and kind of adapted them into 5e before things like Daggerheart and DC-20 and all these other beautiful game systems came out. I was in that crowd of how do I make 5e what I really want it to be? And feat trees was one of the things that I was like, this has to go in because I love it so much. And so I spent hours and hours and hours just building these feat trees that gave you so many specializations. And I love exploring those options in games like Baldur's Gate and other things where you get that opportunity to like spec into these different options and specialize into a really niche thing. I think that's so much fun.
Yeah, I think that the really cool thing about what you said, the first part with flavor, I like that at least in Daggerheart, a lot of the stuff too ends up being flavor being free. I don't know if it necessarily says that in the book. I don't actually think it does, but it is something that you hear all the time, at least in the community, and I'm glad that it embraces it. Because I think with some other of the more rigid systems, not being able to reflavor something that is mechanically the same exact thing always hurts. And I feel the disappointment in players sometimes when that happens.
I love the whimsical way that Daggerheart just approaches things and the like free and openness that is built straight into the rules, where it is so inclusive. Like they're the ones that I think first put in, or they're the first ones that I've seen that have put in like a tactical wheelchair into their combat options.
Yeah.
They have full sections
Which is
about
kind of broken if you've looked at it. I'm just being honest.
Hey, it's about
really
time.
strong.
It's about time that people with disabilities were OP. Let's just, but yeah, but they've got a whole section on playing with disabilities. They've got a whole section about how to like integrate your table. I just love how much personality is felt through the art and the writing and the mechanics. It's just, it's so good.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so let's jump into your traits.
Yeah.
With jumping into your traits, let's talk about your highest stat,
Mhm.
which we talked and touched on a little bit earlier when we were going through your class. Instinct makes sense for a druid, but anything you want to add specifically as to like why this had to be your highest stat?
Yeah, this is just the one that spoke to me. I don't think I have high stats as a human. I feel like I am right at that like average Joe level, but instinct is kind of my edge where when we're playing board games, I just get it and I understand it just a hair faster than people, which makes it terrible for me playing board games because I'll always win the board game the first time and then everybody knows and has figured it out, and then it's just a nightmare for me after that. And that's how I was in school too, where things just kind of came to me just a hair faster than I think for most people. And so just having that little edge of like, I understand things just a little bit faster. That's kind of what I was drawn to and why I put the high score there.
No, I really like that. So flipping it then, most have had a negative modifier,
Yep.
but you in fact do not have a negative modifier, which I think speaks to an individual specifically. I do want to know what was originally your negative modifier and why did it increase?
Yeah. So I talked about kind of feeling like I'm an average Joe. I don't feel like I have any high stats. I also don't feel like I have any super low stats. I feel like I'm decent at most things that I try. Except when it comes to interacting with people. And for a long time, presence was my lowest score. And if we did this at level 6, I would have put a -1 in presence just so that I could bump it up twice to get back to the +1.
Sure.
So that presence is what I actually see as my lowest value, but I've put a lot of time and a lot of effort and work to build up that presence. And I've been fortunate enough to have some really good friends who have helped break me out of my shell. I've had some really cool, unique opportunities. Like I got to be a radio DJ at my college.
Okay.
Which was a really unique experience, especially for somebody who's really shy. But being behind like a mic and not having anybody in the room and just being able to like talk was a really good way to unlock that for me. And then through like tabletop role playing, I do a ton of presentation work at my job now, and communication. And so all of that has kind of built up the presence over the years where it's now at a relatively average level, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it even speaks so much as to, regardless of where your stats kind of are, you can, like, in very much in real life, you can work on your weaknesses. And I know that, like, some people are like, oh, just embrace your weaknesses. Like, sometimes, yeah, but sometimes I don't really want to. I want to be better. And I think just having those extra stat bonus really kind of speaks to that.
Yeah. I really like the recognize your weaknesses, but setting those kind of personal growth opportunities. And I know my personal journey, and for a lot of other people, it's like struggling with weight and constantly feeling
Yeah.
like you're overweight or eating too much or not understanding eating habits. And it's really important for me that to have that body positivity. I don't feel like you need to look a certain way or have a certain weight. But then for me, I want to get stronger and I want to get more
Yeah.
muscular and I want to just be able to like have a certain style. And so I'm trying to set those boundaries of like, hey, what's a realistic, what's a healthy goal that can still accept where I'm at and accept that I'm not going to always look like certain people or have a certain body, but still wanting to kind of get better and to work on certain things and improve my overall health. And so I really like trying to maintain that balance.
And I think that's totally fair too. I think it's really cool because life really shouldn't be at extremes of either end. It really is about almost like, I guess, the temperance, I think, is the word for like finding that center and finding that balance. But that's really cool, and which makes sense. And so I did want to then ask about like all of your stats kind of overall. Is there any other stats that you want to kind of speak to a little bit more?
My stats are all, if I almost left everything else at a +1 or 0. I
Yeah.
bumped up knowledge slightly just because I am an engineer. So it's got just that study over time. And it kind of also represents, I think, very much a lot of nerd culture. I think a lot of nerds came
Yes.
from that like science STEM background of like,
Yep.
I built Legos and people told me I should be an engineer. And then I found out what engineering was and I didn't really like it. But I was stuck. Like that was my path. That's a lot of my friends' path. I relate to that very much, but it has kind of just come over time of just being exposed to that over time. I feel like I've got a decent mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think nerds. So I think it's interesting when you bring up nerds, because everyone nerds out about something.
Yeah.
Like everyone has those stats. Like basketball players are nerds.
yeah.
The reality of it is the fact that you understand someone else's or multiple people's statistical records. That's nerdy.
It really
And
is.
so and so I think bringing up that those aspects, everyone does have a capacity, and really being an overall average person is a good thing. So cool. Before we jump into my favorite segment, which is experiences, you do need to roll me another duality die for
Okay. Oh, that is a 15 with hope.
15 with hope. 15 with hope. Make sure you're adding the hope.
Oh, yeah.
I think you spoke a little bit on this, but I
Mhm.
do want to know, as like a full answer, what is the best thing about being a part of the TTRPG community?
I think the coolest thing about it is having all of these people who have gone through like a self discovery at like the same time. It's kind of weird where just collectively, almost as like a not even a generation, because it breaks generation gaps, but just over these last like decade, due to the world, due to the way that we like take in different media, it just feels like we've all gotten to this point of like, hey, what we've been taught, the way that we've been acting, the way that culture just exists is not really right. And I need an escape from that. I don't feel comfortable in my body. I don't feel comfortable in who I am. I don't feel comfortable like expressing myself. And then here comes tabletop role playing games. And now suddenly I can embrace that side of maybe I was a nerd and didn't know it. And now I get to do that. Or maybe I was always a nerd and now I just get to be more personable, like
Yeah.
for me. But it just had that moment of kind of self discovery that I think a lot of people have shared. And because of that, I feel like it's such a bright community where everybody seems to be, for the most part, welcoming. Like I think both with BladeBound Saga and with the Pocket Dimension and with other groups that we kind of run in the same circles of, like everyone is so friendly, is so welcoming. I'm always happy to hop on calls. I'm always happy to help people out. And I get the same thing from other people. And so it really is that community feel that I think helps make people feel inclusive. And I think that, as much as Critical Role is popular and as much as it's gone into the media, I think that that is really a big aspect of why these games have gotten so popular as well, is that people feel happy, they feel comfortable, they feel like they can express themselves in ways that they never could before. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, you kind of nailed it. Like there is it really an almost a metamorphosis once you realize I can do this. And
Yeah.
I have seen so many people just like you, like myself, that have learned new skills, learned new aspects about them, gone like players working through like their emotional baggage
Yeah.
through player. And there are always going to be those members of the community that are negative about things, toxic, whatever bad wording you want to put on it. But overall, I feel like the community as a whole is like uplifting.
Yeah.
And especially in this day and age, we have so many different types of games that if you have a game that you struggle with, there's still a community in another game that you might just vibe with so much more. So I 100% agree with you about the tabletop RPG community.
And I feel like it also just has a little bit of something for everybody, where like if
Mhm.
you're into those crunchy mechanics and you love like grinding on a video game and getting really good and getting the skills and figuring out the broken combos, if you raided with WoW back in the day, or if you are like a jock and you just have always thought that you're better than being a nerd, and you kind of find these statistics and you find this ability to be a barbarian and rage out in combat, or you're a theater kid and you get the opportunity to kind of talk and role play, like there's so many different things there that it really has ways of breaking down those boundaries and those clicks to engage people in a lot of different ways and make stories together, which is the coolest thing ever.
No, I love that. All right, let's jump into my favorite section,
Yeah.
which is experiences. I'm gonna start with the ones that like give you the lower plus value, which I think is the first one here.
Yeah.
The good man deliver, and the best is blessed.
Yeah. So
I don't
uh,
know. Is this a phrase at all?
so all of these are actually song titles.
Okay.
I took a little bit of a page out of AK's book, as well as something that I've kind of done in the past. I am really into music. I was in band for a long time. I collect vinyl records. I've got a wide taste in music. And so I wanted to just put this little bit of flavor of myself by picking out some of my favorite songs by favorite artists, and then finding the ones that actually connected with things that are in my life, and then kind of trying to put them in rough chronological order. And
Sure.
so the Good Man Deliver and the Best is Blessed is a song by Snarky Puppy, which is a jazz fusion band. Most of these, I'll be surprised if many people know these. I think a few of them might be popular, but that one, if you're not into jazz, you probably don't know Snarky Puppy, but they're amazing. They're awesome.
Sure.
I go out and watch them in concert. But I had early in my life when I started with band, I was really into jazz music. My mom is a jazz and funk singer. She's a 5'0" white woman who sings like a black woman in a gospel choir. And that was just with me from early beginnings. And so I grew up on lots of old funk and old rock and roll and jazz and things. And so I wanted to put that in at the beginning. And that saying is very much a kind of draws back to what I talked about with like the Orderborn community, where it talks about having like a virtuous person receiving, kind of being favored and receiving blessings and kind of reaping what you sow type of things. A lot of like, hey, if you are doing the right thing, if you are acting right, then good things will come your way and your life will kind of progress. And then how that kind of works into Daggerheart, not only is it kind of a happy, uplifting thing if we're in a roleplay centric, but as we lean more combat centric, it can have kind of that darker tone that like pastor who's dealt with a little bit too much shit in the Western films and kind of puts down the Bible, picks up the rifle kind of thing. That's the vibe that it gives me. And so I liked having that kind of interpretation of it as well.
Yeah, I like that. Business as usual / pay no mind. Once again, these are song titles, I am the worst at song titles, let alone lyrics. So I'm probably not getting any of these.
Yeah.
But I want to know what this is and then what this means.
And these are obscure ones, so I wouldn't feel too bad. I kind of cheated here, which is why I put the /. So business as usual was the name of my radio show that I had when I was working at KMNR at the radio station, and it's actually an album title, not a song title. It's an album from Men at Work, who are 70s, 60s, somewhere around there. But so yeah, that was the show that I did when I ran. I had a classic rock show and a jazz show at the radio station. And Pay No Mind is a song by Madeon. It's kind of an electronic song, an EDM style. But both of them have the same vibe, where it's like you've got this kind of perspective to kind of ignore any negativity and external pressures and really kind of focus on you being what drives your happiness and your pursuit of yourself. And so this kind of whatever happens, I'm going to kind of truck through. I'm going to be kind of that unshakable person that can be a constant rock for my friends, that can kind of work through whatever challenges come through my life. Whatever gets to be too much, I'm going to pay it no mind. I'm going to have business as usual. I'm going to keep on trucking. That was the vibe that I was going for there. And with a roleplay centric, being able to kind of shrug things off, being able to kind of limit my focus. So if things go crazy, if we've got people screaming and fighting over one side and I need to really focus and get something done, I can kind of rely on that kind of experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Wow, these like I don't even have anything to retort because I'm just really intrigued by like your background and then these stories. So jumping into your first +3, a normal life. I think I understand this one a little bit based on our conversation, though. You want to speak to it, though?
Sure. And for all of these, music, again, is really important to my life. And I spend, in my GM prep time, I spend probably the most time on music, way more than anyone should.
Okay.
I've got playlists for every session, for every campaign, for every boss, and they're all like carefully crafted for their like transitions and things. So music is what I pour way too much thought into and why I have so much to say for these. But a normal life is really kind of the piece that I felt connected to. So this is a song by Marianas Trench. They're a Canadian band who was popular like a decade ago, and then they released some new albums recently, and they've just been killer. I've been in love with them. I've connected with them a lot. But the song is about kind of this internal conflict between this desire for a conventional life and feeling like you don't belong in it. And it's all about like alienation and pressure to conform. And that was like my entire existence up to and through college, where I never really felt like I fit in. I was always kind of trying to be that normal average person, and that left me without really finding my niche, without like focusing on what made me special and unique. And so that kind of for that conflict is something that I've experienced a lot with, that I've kind of talked to a lot of people about, and that I feel like a lot of people in the RPG space feel and connect to as well. And then in role-playing games, it doesn't have as hard of a connection, but I feel like being able to kind of play off and bluff your way through as kind of a normal person or blend into things can be kind of a way to connect it in, or it can kind of be pulled in the exact opposite direction of, hey, you felt like you've been normal, here's your time to shine. I almost put Zero to Hero from Hercules in here. I was really tempted to, because that one felt very appropriate, but it's that same kind of vibe.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think going into, man, I have, so as the viewers may or may not know at this point, I am coming up with the encounters as we're having a conversation. And I think like
It's
some of
amazing.
the stuff that you've just said, like have finally like hit the synapses. I think I know where we're going,
Oh,
but we do have to get there. So
Yeah.
I'll ask the last experience. Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? A taste of the power in parentheses.
Yeah.
Explain this one.
So the song is called Wouldn't You Like? And it's from Epic the Musical, which if you don't know Epic the Musical, you should definitely look it up. It's killer. It was a college kid's kind of senior project that turned into a full-on musical production, and he's now meeting with like Lin-Manuel Miranda on his off time, and he's like in talks to make it a production and a video game. And so like living the dream. Go check out Epic the Musical. But this song is all
Such a good
about
soundtrack.
oh, it's so good.
Such a good soundtrack.
I jammed
That
to
one
it.
I do know.
I jammed to this song in particular. This song is a Hermes song that has got a funky beat, and I do love me some funk. But it's about kind of facing those formidable challenges, and the desire for power and victory, and kind of how you overcome those challenges. And so Hermes is giving this power to Odysseus. And so very much in my life, as I'm looking to grow, as I'm looking to adapt, I'm looking for that thing that I can kind of get better at, that I can overcome. And so constantly trying to kind of figure out what I need, that piece of power, that piece of understanding, that piece of myself that helps me move on to the next stage in my life, or unlock that next piece of understanding for me, or be able to connect to other people on whatever it is. And then it's got a nice, happy connection to RPG games, where a taste of the power can be either very beneficial and, hey, I'm helping people, I'm providing you something, or it can be, would you like a taste of my power? And I can bring down some heat on somebody.
That's so great. All right. Wow. I like this is Like, there's so many great, like, this is so well put. Not that everyone else isn't put together, but
You
like
hear that? I'm
in
better,
this,
guys.
like, man, like these lyrics or these song titles and tying them into your life, especially because I don't know most of these, is really shocking to me. It's so cool. So let's move on to, or before we move on
Yeah.
to our domain card spotlight, you do need to roll me a duality to see if we
Oh.
get a hope or a fear here.
Okay. That is a 22 with hope.
22. I don't know if we've gotten up to these questions before because they're on the other sides of the spectrum. With hope,
Oh, wait, hold on. That's 2 11s. That's a crit. Does that matter?
2 11s is a crit. Oh my! So last episode also had a crit. So we're gonna jump into the second crit question that I have. What is what is a dream that you have fulfilled in your life?
It's a dream I have fulfilled in my life. Oof, goodness. But this is hard for someone who's always dealing with imposter syndrome. I think as far as dreams go, it wasn't until later in life that I really started to understand what dreams I wanted to kind of pursue. Like I always got the questions of what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, it was a
Yeah.
marine biologist. And then I found out that they made no money, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But I always wanted to be on Shark Week and things because I thought that was cool.
Sure.
But as far as like dreams that I've been able to kind of see through, some of the like simple RPG games ones of like getting all the way through a level 1 to 20 on D&D 5e
Yeah.
was really cool. And that might seem really like small and niche, but being able to keep my friends together through college and through breaking up and going to different states and in some cases different countries, and having something that we all met together through like almost every week. It was crazy how we made scheduling work, and that has kept kind of our friendship going for now. It's been 6 years since we graduated, and so the game has been going on for 9 years now, where we've been meeting almost every week, and that is just bonkers in the world that we're in with the way that everybody's lives go. And so even though the game is kind of almost superficial, the connections that I've been able to have and the friendships that I've been able to that already existed in college but now are so much stronger. Like those are the people that I invited to my wedding. Those are the people who are my best men and maids of honor and things like that. Or I don't even remember what we called it. Those are my core group of friends. They've been together with me for a long, long time, and so it's been really, really cool to have that and to watch that and to also watch it like unlock pieces of them. Because tabletop role playing games are kind of like therapy, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
And so being able to watch people kind of process things, to be able to kind of leave the stress of work and life behind for a little bit to come and enjoy the world that I've built for them, and watching people really respond well to that has been super cool. And then I haven't completed it yet, but one of the things that I'm really excited for that we're getting really close to is publishing my first book in the tabletop role playing state. And so it's in work. It's still got a long ways to go before it's publishable, but we'll be releasing it soon for some early comments. I've built a campaign frame for Daggerheart called Queen's Light, and I got folks over at the Pocket Dimension to playtest it. We're going to have some community games for it. It's been a passion project for me for a long time, and it kind of takes aspects of some of the games that I love most, like roguelikes and Hollow Knight in particular, because the insectoid fairy for Daggerheart was like just perfect. But I've had thoughts about this game and about this world in the back of my head for years. And so finally being able to take some time and put it on paper has been a big challenge for me. And has been something that has been really cool to explore. And so once we finally get there, fingers crossed, it's coming soon. That'll be a major achievement too.
Yeah, that's great. I'm still thinking about your friends, and then being able to like a level 1 to 20 campaign in a 5e setting or system is an achievement.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short, because that does not happen. Whether it's the players leaving, whether it's the GM getting burnt out, because lo and behold, GM burnout is real, or just the campaign just like, oh, I want to try something new, and then a one shot becomes a campaign, which has happened to me very, very,
Yeah.
very, very, very many times. But I think it really kind of speaks to, one, the sacredness that you as friends gave to the game, but also the sacredness to you as friends to give to your friendship. Because I think we don't usually use the word sacred because it has a religious connotation, but it really is a great word. And it really is what most tabletop campaigns are. You are taking the time consistently to say, this is the time that I'm going to spend with these people. And I think that's just, that is another aspect of tabletop that is one of my favorite personally. So
I couldn't agree more. So the first game that I ran from level 1 to 20 took us 3.5 years. We had over 13 players involved, but the same 6 have been with me for the last 9 years. We're in our second level 1 to 20 game now. And so it's been so cool to watch those people progress through their lives and through like different characters has been just awesome and amazing. And I loved that first game so much that I went out and commissioned a bunch of artwork. And so we actually have that game is on my channel, but there's also a video of all of the art from like the major moments of that campaign.
Oh, that's so cool.
From different artists. And that is the most emotional I've ever gotten about something that like I've been a part of, because watching the players kind of react to that, watching them like tear up as they remember these moments was like such a powerful moment that I wasn't expecting. And so it was really, really cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's dive into essentially our kind of more or less speed roundy section, which is the domain card spotlight. So you have selected domains from the 3 domains that you have with different cards that have different abilities. I just want to know, like, let me know what the domain card is and then how that relates to your life, and just kind of go through it, through what's in your hand or what's on your current character sheet, but then also what might be in your vault as well.
So first one up is Wall Walk. That one was an easy choice for me. Arcana and Sage didn't have a whole lot of things with names that I connected with, or like immediate things that made me think of something in my life. Wall Walk, I do a bunch of rock climbing, and so that one was one that like fit in very nicely. And was easy. Troublemaker is the next one. I picked it up from the multi-class in Bard. For me, it's very much a reference to my stepdaughter. Her and I do all sorts of playing around. We wrestle. She does karate and stuff. We rock climb together. We're always getting into trouble. Whereas my wife is very relaxed and even temperament, and she is always fed up with our shenanigans. So that one felt very on brand. Death Grip was one of the ones that kind of connects back into rock climbing as well, but also kind of with my journey through my own personal health and trying to get into weightlifting, make myself stronger. That was one that like didn't quite fit, but was the best thing that I could kind of find there. And then Conjure Swarm, if I didn't take Fairy as my ancestry, which I don't think fits me, I had to put a connection to Hollow Knight and Queen's Light somewhere. So that was where Conjure Swarm fit in with that. And then the final one in my hand is Cinder Grasp. I mentioned I went to school for engineering. I started out as a mechanical engineer, got my graduate in explosives engineering, where I learned to do like fireworks and close proximity explosives for like rock bands and things like that, as well as like military testing and all sorts of fun stuff. And so I needed to put an homage to the coolest thing that I've done, even if it wasn't for very long.
And then anything in your vault?
I have one in my vault that is just Nature's Tongue, and it just kind of connects up to my background through scouts and through other things of kind of being in nature, being connected. And then kind of my biggest thing is I love plants. I've got so many different house plants. There's one behind me that we're trying to bring back to life, but I've got a whole wall of just different house plants. We've got a ton outside, and so I love plants. I love seeing all the different weird kinds, and so that was kind of a connection there.
I love that. All right, so before we jump into the encounter, I do need you to roll one final time. So roll me that Duality die and let me know what you get.
That is a 10 with hope.
10 with hope. A lot of hope going into this one. So a nice, easy one to close us off. Austin, what is your favorite comfort food or meal?
Oh, goodness. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is something that I don't eat anymore. But I used to always get quesadillas from Taco Bell. Now it's kind of evolved.
I love quesadillas from Taco Bell.
Yeah, they slap, man. I would grab like 3 of them, and they're freezes that they would have for college studying parties. Now it's kind of evolved into other Mexican food. I used to get arroz con pollo, which is just rice and chicken all the time. You can get that like anywhere, and so it was a nice consistent meal for me. The Mexican restaurant that I have down the street from me has an arroz Veracruz, which is chicken, steak, shrimp with like onions and peppers all over cheesy rice. It's amazing. I eat it in tortillas, and it feels like I'm getting instant diabetes, but it's so good. And I make my own food all the time, and so I love to make my own tacos. I've got a twist on some quesadilla tacos that are really good, that are like my wife's favorite food and that we eat all the time. Mexican food in general is just like my go-to all the time.
Yeah, that's so great. And as I think the worst part about food is they want to kill us slowly They taste so great and they're so good at it, and it almost is parasitic, and
It's
I
brutal, man.
fall for it almost every time. So, Austin, that's the last question we have for you. So I do have one final question to ask.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, let's jump into this.
Hope, fear, hope, fear, hope, fear, terror!
Austin, you find yourself walking on the city streets of New York. You just got a new job and you're working and excited, but it's all new for you. Your first day goes off without a hitch, and then you hear everyone gasp and kind of scream. Everyone is running towards the windows. Some people are looking on their phones, looking at the monitors, and they're noticing that there's breaking news. The city is under attack. The local hero has arisen, and you see in the sky basically this hero clashing with another, what looks to be some sort of enemy, some sort of villain of some kind in the sky. And at this point, you get the order, you all need to leave. Evacuate the building, could fall at any point. Normal standard protocol, kind of odd. But as you begin walking out onto the streets, you see kind of jettisoning from the sky down. You hear the impact onto the ground as you see the hero's body kind of drag along the side. Everyone's like, what's going on? And you see the villain standing tall, this individual with very much a very smooth face, something that is out of this world, looks to everyone in this crowd and says, stand down if you wish to keep your lives. But in the back of your mind, you hear, put on the suit.
I think just seeing this and having that initial reaction of looking around, trying to check on others, trying to see where I can get to either people I know, whether it's coworkers or friends or family who's here with me, and trying to look at the state of like, is it a place where I need to get people out? Is it a place where we need to escape? Or is this a spot where I have to take a stand here?
As you begin kind of observing, everyone is like either stunned or some people are just continually running down the street. You see this kind of villain walking forward and now towards the body of what was this hero, taking him on, and now like drops from this point of like levitating and walks towards the body. Make an instinct roll as you begin kind of observing what's going on.
That's a crit, double threes.
Something just tells you and speaks to you immediately that this hero is dead. One must stand up. He looks, and like this villain grabs a hold of this individual, raising him up and like kind of like just slaps him across the face. The body kind of goes limp. Taking him, he just kind of throws, "This is your hero?" and just kind of throws him off, and then begins to kind of lift up into the sky, and now at this point begins kind of like heading towards what you can only imagine as the center of the city.
I think just kind of in this moment and feeling this sudden urge to take a stand, to step in, without thinking, I just kind of call out, just almost from another person, another place. It surprises me maybe as much as anyone else, just like, hey, Condom Head, what you doing over there? Come over here. And I want to try and use Troublemaker here.
Yeah, as he just moves out of close range and then instantly like hears those words and turns very slowly. Make a presence roll for me, I think is the roll needed for Troublemaker.
I think
and you have a good amount of hope, I believe.
I do.
So you're more than welcome to use any of that for any of your experiences.
I would love to, and I think in this one, as it's just speaking through this other place, I think I'm gonna try, because I'm baiting him in. I'm gonna say, "Wouldn't you like a taste of the power?" See
sure, I would say this makes
put
sense.
that into play here. So we'll use a hope. Let's see, make a presence roll. Okay, so that is a 13 with hope on the die, and then plus the 3 is 16 with hope, and then we'll spend another hope to add Heart of a Poet here, because we're definitely trying to offend this guy.
Yeah.
So that is an 18 with hope at the end of the
18
day.
with hope is going to succeed as they're bursting off, and there's already been this like kind of gust of air. Everyone's kind of like ducked from some of the rubble that might have like pushed off as he bursts forward, but then at the same speed at which he goes, he stops and you see him slowly turn. There's kind of like that stress mark that you would typically see in like anime, like at the top of his of his forehead. What did you roll? As that is successful, go ahead and roll me a number of d4s equal to your proficiency,
I rolled.
and whatever the highest is.
Yeah, I rolled 2 4s and a 2, so he takes 4 stress.
4 stress. He looks over at you.
He didn't like that comment.
What did you call me? What did you call the Almighty? And I'm going to spend a fear as he is going to kind of like immediately burst forward towards you and make an attack roll just with a strict like full-on fist to you. Does a 18 hit?
Oh,
I
yeah.
assume it does. With an 18, that is going to be a total of, oh, this one's hefty. 32 points of physical damage to you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely use an armor slot because that would be my severe. Here I was thinking that I was
punches through you. As he punches, there's almost this looming presence, like he himself, like there's like a gravity to his presence as he pushes you, and you get kind of knocked through the first floor and appear on the other street. You're also going to mark a stress as well as you appear on the other side, and he sees you in his hands. Can you describe to me like what he sees and what this like aspect of the heroic Austin is? What are you wearing? What is this visage now that you hold?
It's very much that Clark Kent mentality. You know, I got my glasses, I got my button-up shirt. It's a day at the work, but there is just this thing that I'm not even controlling anymore. It is the full anime moment, and I am an elemental druid, and because of explosives engineering, I took the fire elemental, and so it's just like starting to burn in. It's starting to like pop open the buttons. It's got the flaming eyes. Like there is just that raging intensity as this hit kind of just knocks whatever sense was left in me out, and I'm just fully committed to this. I'm expecting to die in 2 hits. Like there's no, all of that restriction has just been so overwhelmed by how crazy of an idea that it is, that it's just gone, and it's just full commitment at this point.
Yeah, as you do so, for whatever reason, why you've been holding off on these powers in terms of showing yourself publicly, you get this sense within you, this almost like second voice that says, so you finally put it on, and responds, shall you finally do what you've been trained to? And play passes to you.
Okay. I think after taking that hit, I definitely want to get some protection up, and so I'll mark a stress here. Yeah. To conjure up these beetles from the ground, and they kind of swarm around it. It almost is like this moment from The Mummy where these just insects crawl up the body, but then they kind of burst into the heat and kind of shine into this metallic plating. And where there was just kind of a business casual outfit, it is now this metallic superhero suit of metal and fire.
Yeah, he scoffs at you. It's like, the insects, they speak with you? And he just kind of laughs and says, this is another one of your heroes, as he like looks out towards the rest of the crowd.
And I think at the same time, I'm gonna try and do a spellcast roll, and as he's been kind of mocking these insects, they've been creeping up around his ankles and feet, and I'm gonna try and do a death grip and see if I can pull in with those insects to give him some more stress here.
Yeah, go ahead and make the roll.
Okay, that is a 20 with hope.
20 with hope. Really rolling with hope on this one.
I know.
Well, that is certainly going to hit.
This die is coming in clutch for me. This custom dies. I promise it's not weighted.
With Death Grip, you do have an option. What exactly are you doing here? You do successfully, you do succeed, but what are you doing in terms of the option for Death Grip here?
I want to use kind of these creatures to just cover the body and deal additional, it's 2 stress, and I believe they're restrained, and so it's just covering and swarming over them, trying to give me a moment to kind of get on top of them and gain an advantage after that hit nearly knocked my senses loose.
Yeah, you kind of see this. All of a sudden, these beetles kind of like latch onto his body, and the weight that keeps him up drop him kind of to the ground. He's now on the ground, and he's like, "What in?" And you immediately kind of just see him just kind of lash out. There's almost this like psionic like pulse that he kind of shuts off. I am going to spend a fear immediately to break that as he looks at you. Are you running? Are you turned? Like it took him a couple feet down as you kind of drop onto your feet.
I think in this moment, I'm stepping forward. Like I want this to gain an advantage. And so like while he's fighting the beetles, I'm looking for my opening and trying to take up that advantage that I might have gotten.
Yeah, the beetles have bought you some time. As you see this moment, he's open and he looks to like shrug everything off, and he looks at you, and as he does, what are you doing?
I'm going to... Is there anyone else around?
You see some individuals, but you're in the center of the streets. For the vehicles, for the most part, have kind of started clearing, and everyone, if not have, the vehicles are still that are parked. Probably all the denizens have run away. Everyone is at this point running from the potential, they're NPCs. They die in one hit, so they're running away.
I think in this moment, as people are kind of fleeing, I'm going to try and step forward, kind of use another stress here to burst into my elemental form as that fire begins to surge, and I take on this kind of heroic look. I'm going to try and take this moment to inspire what few people I can. Not sure if I'm going to be able to knock this guy down, but knowing that numbers might be the advantage that we need, and just kind of call out just, the only way that these people have power over us is if we give it to them. I'll use my rally.
Yeah. As you do so, you see a couple individuals who kind of look to, it's like they look at you and they ask, what are we supposed to do? As they're ready and they don't really know what to do. And I am going to say with that, there's enough moment as you're attempting to bring these people up that he is going to say, he is going to take his hand, move forward and jut, and he's going to try to punch you in the face as there's kind of an opening as you spoke with the crowd. That's a 20 to hit. So rolling pretty well on my hits, and that will be 20 points of physical damage.
So 20 would be my major. I'll use an armor slot to knock it down to my minor. And with the beetles, we're going to go ahead and take no damage.
Okay. So with that, as you do so, you find yourself being pushed back a little bit on this hit. You're moved back to about close range at this point. He takes a step, says, "You choose to speak in the midst of a battle? What are you?" Play passes to you.
I am not even going to respond to him right now, and going to look to those who are looking around and searching for what they need to do. And I'm just going to look down at the body of the hero and hope that he's more Batman than Superman, and hope that they get the message that maybe he might have something to help, and just speak out again in kind of this over amplified voice. Just choose whether this moment is yours to make an impact. And then I'll turn and just throw this fireball haymaker right at this alien creature. And I'm going to try and use a Cinder Grasp on him.
Yeah, go ahead and make the spellcast roll. In addition, I do actually want you to make a second roll for a presence check here.
Okay. And
tell me the first one and then the presence after.
Yeah. With the spellcast roll, am I able to burn a hope to use an experience on it? Trying to, again, give him a taste of the power. Yeah. Okay, so that is a 4 on the hope, a 9 on the fear. That's 13. I can do math. 13, 16, 19 with fear.
19 with fear is going to succeed, so go ahead and roll for damage.
All right, so that will be 14 plus 3, 17 points of magic damage, and he is temporarily lit on fire.
Yeah, that is going to be... Total the points again for me?
17 points of fire damage. Or
17 points of fire damage. Magic damage. He is resistant to magic. Okay. So that is going to drop, and that is going to be just a minor wound to him. With that presence check, go ahead and make that roll for me.
That is 2 9s.
2 9s. Okay. As you call out for these kind of denizens to do something, they said, one of them kind of immediately says exactly what you're thinking. It's like, his belt, and they just start like sprinting. It's like, someone grab the belt, and they all just start running across to the street that he originally dropped from, and they're on the way there. But with that roll with fear from before, one of them, he turns and says, "This is not how combat must be done. Do not disrespect me." And he is going to then turn, and he's going to run, or he's basically sprinting or flying towards the civilians that are running towards the belt at this point. I am going to mark, you have a countdown of 2 currently. So 2 actions before he reaches these civilians, less you just allow them to. With that, he did just take an action, so that is going to be the fire damage. So go and roll me the burning damage.
11 points of magic damage.
11 points of magic. That is once again going to be a minor wound. Untouched as he's flying towards. Before you do that, I am going to mark a fear to just kind of wick it off to him, the speed at which he's moving. You have moments to save these individuals. Your inspiration, though bringing them to arise, does put them in harm's way. What do you do here?
In this moment, what range is he as he's moving?
He's now at this point at far range.
If I like move after him, am I able to get him within close range?
Yeah, I would say still just go ahead and make me an agility check.
Yeah, sure.
As he's moving at the same time as you're moving.
That is 23, 24 with hope. That was an 11 and 12.
With hope is going to succeed. You kind of manage to get into that range. As you do, what do you loose?
I'm going to try another death grip just a get over here moment of sending out these vines that are more like, rather than leaves, they are burning, ashy types of tendrils that wrap around him and are going to try and pull him closer. Oh, that was the spellcast roll. So we're going to pull the target into melee of myself. And again, temporarily restrains him.
Go ahead and make me a spellcast roll for Death Grip.
So that one is a 25, but with fear.
25 with fear. As you do so, that is going to succeed. You begin to kind of like wrapping him and pulling him back. As he does so, you pull him and he is going to kind of like loose the momentum. And as you hear him like verbally say, that's it. And he's just going to like pull with the momentum and kind of use his feet to hit you as well on the way back.
Okay.
Does a 17 hit.
Yeah.
I am rolling fairly well on the damage die here. And that is going to be 15 points of physical damage.
15 points is my minor, so I will just use the bugs and take nothing.
You're spending the hope for these.
Yes, marking down the hope
just
to keep them running.
Awesome. Yep. Swings back to you all.
And just as he just swings out, this slams in towards me, those bugs just form a shield and just if you keep mocking the little things, they're going to climb up and overtake you. And I'll once again have that swarm try and reach over, try and push him beyond his stress level. I'm going to do another death grip for the stress effect if I can.
Yeah, go for it. Make the spellcast roll here.
Okay. That was a 13 with hope, 16 with hope.
16 with hope just succeeds. Go ahead and roll. Or as you
just
do so,
stress.
You notice that he kind of takes this moment. The bugs begin to infect him. And as he's like fighting this restraint, but now the bugs begin to kind of collapse. You see some of the bugs now trying to enter into his system. As he kind of just screams out, some of them jump in the mouth, and he kind of like spits out as much as he can. That is going to mark him as vulnerable. With that, I think I have to take a fear to spend a GM move and then another fear to clear the condition. And with that, I'm going to spend my last fear to activate Almighty's presence, as he is just going to like kind of go into this state where you see him kind of just begin to like whelm with just an aura of power. In doing so, I need you to make a presence reaction roll for me.
Okay. And trying to stand up to this individual, can I burn another hope for a normal life? That I just want to keep the status quo here for the people so that they can go on with their lives?
You certainly can.
Okay. So that was it's presence, so that's 11, 14 with hope.
14 with hope does not succeed. You are going to mark 5 stress. Where does that take you for your stress currently?
Okay, I would have marked 5. I rolled 2 6s, so I marked 3. So I have 2 stress remaining.
As he does so, he is just going to begin to whelm. Since you did fail, I do gain 1 fear. I think I will just spend right away, as he's going to make like this kind of take his 2 hands and just try to like smash down on you.
Yeah.
Does don't think this one will work. Does a 10 hit?
10 does just hit. My evasion is low.
Just hits.
Yep.
You kind of dodge out of the way, but almost as if he's expecting it in this state, he takes 1 step forward before he finishes the swing. And you take 29 points of physical damage here.
That is exactly my severe, so I'll mark a hope and mark an armor slot to take 1.
Still surviving, he looks at you. How are you still standing? Play passes to you.
You're looking at the wrong spot, and I'm going to take this opportunity. As he was expecting me to kind of dodge, I've baited him into where I want him, and I want to try and use this again to restrain him. I've made him vulnerable. I want to try and lock him down so that those people who are responding and taking up the call, he's vulnerable for them. I want to give them an opening and see if maybe we can line up for a tag team coming up.
I was just about to say the same thing. As you see them kind of running back around the corner, you see the individual having the belt in hand, and it's just like, what do I do?
You know, a friend of mine used to say that sometimes things are a bit like serrated razor blades dipped in danger mayonnaise. I couldn't tell you what you're supposed to do. Just give it your best guess.
Yeah, if you wish, do you have the 3 hope for a tag team here?
I do.
Yeah, if you wish, they're just going to take this belt and they're just going to throw it, the whole belt towards you. Unsure of exactly how it all works, you see it flying in the air. I will have you roll the 2 duality and take the highest on this, or take whichever one you wish.
Okay, and I'm going to see if this will work. As I'm trying to kind of give this lesson to this pasty, scale-faced alien creature, can I try and lean on my order-born dedications of treating people with kindness and respect to bump up that hope die to a D20?
Yeah, I would say one of the hope die is a D20, the other one's a standard D12.
Well, that didn't go well. Was this the spellcast roll, or is this a presence? What were you having me roll?
This would be whatever you are adding to this tag team attack.
So
I already know what's going to happen in terms of damage-wise with the belt, but
I was trying to lock him into place, but I only got an 11 with fear, funny enough, because I only rolled a 2 on that D20. But they rolled a 20 with hope.
Okay.
Unless they have any modifiers.
Get this individual at this point looks to kind of like take his fist and is about to swing forward when just at the corner the corner on the right and left, you hear just all the denizens just say, "Hey, look here!" as he's like thrown off before the punch. You find this moment where you see his body kind of restrained down to the ground, and this belt just spins and spins and is about to land. Can you roll me 3d20 for me?
3d20? Sure. Let me get out the big metal d20s. Okay. So that is 17 plus 12 is 29 plus 8 is 37.
37 is certainly going to be a severe wound, as that is going to be physical damage. These kind of explosions almost of just like, almost like you hear just like the remainder of whatever's in his belt. You wonder, it's like, why didn't you use this in this fight? But that is going to be 3 points of damage. He kind of like gets this barrage, and as this smoke kind of settles, everyone kind of sits there wondering what is to happen. You hear kind of a cough in front of you. He is still standing. I do not have fear to stop you. He's still recovering from this. Play is still with you.
Okay, so in this moment, as he's down on the ground in the smoke, kind of recovering, I'm gonna try and utilize with my last hope, the good man deliver and the best is blessed. Put on my best kind of John Wayne impression and try and put this guy down just with a hand straight to the face and try and push him into the dust with flame bursting out here. And that is going to be a 19.
You also have your rally die as well.
Oh, that's true. We got a 19, 22, 24 with fear.
24 with fear is going to hit, so go ahead and roll for damage.
Okay. And we got 3d10 plus 3 on this. Oh, that's looking good. I believe 37 points of magical damage.
37 points of magical damage is still halved. That brings it to 16? No.
17? Oh, I can't. We both can't do math.
17, yeah, 17.
37,
So
15 is half of 30, half of 7 is like 3 or 4, and so it's 18 or 19.
Yep, 17 is going to be a major wound. As you do so, kind of pushing this individual down to the ground, it's almost like you feel the heat emanating and the flames kind of then erupt off to the sides. He then says, I'm not going to, and he's just going to like take a haymaker punch up and send you up into the air if he hits. That's going to be a 4 to hit, a 4 to, or no, a 7 to hit. That probably doesn't hit.
If it does not.
Yeah, you do so. He swings wide with his, like, you feel the punch straight through. You feel the wind as the as the smoke pushes out to the side. His hand reaches up into the air and he looks at you just square in the eyes as he just completely whiffed this massive haymaker punch that would have sent you flying. His hand stuck. This awkward face as you lock eye contact with him. What do you do in this moment? He is definitely marked as vulnerable at this point.
Oh yeah, and just enjoying that wonderful look of anxiety on his face that I have experienced many a time. We're going to bring him down just a peg, and we're just gonna sit there as he's just anxious and vulnerable and out in the open, and just let him be. Just let him enjoy this moment of knowing that he's lost, and let him see what he can do. Let him know that I'm not here to crush him. I'm here to teach him how to be better.
Make a presence or instinct roll. I think either would make sense here.
Okay. Don't have any hope, so we're just gonna go. Well, what's the rally die? Do I have to declare that before I roll, or is that after I roll?
I always roll as long as you say it before the effects of the result. I don't care whether you roll before or whether you add it before or after.
Okay. And we'll see what we got. Oh, that's looking pretty good, but it is with fear. I think we will try and do a rally. Oh, I don't even have a D8 out right now. So that is a 21 with fear.
21 with fear is going to succeed as he looks at you and his hand slowly comes down. He looks around at everything that has happened. This does not make sense.
You're thinking about power as what makes you better than everyone else. But the most powerful people are those who have an opportunity to put someone down and choose not to.
He takes this advice, must reevaluate, and he just starts slowly flying up, heading towards what you assume is space, wherever he came from. You know you left some sort of presence, some sort of moment of contemplation against some being that, as you begin kind of coughing, the beetles like all start leaving your body for a moment. You see all the bruising from the fight that no one ever shows after superhero fights. As he continues on, you hear the sounds and sirens of what you assume is emergency response vehicles, and then you get the sense that you don't know how, but you hear press on the way. What are you doing and where do you go? If you go.
I think the first thing that I would do is look around and make sure that those who need me are okay, that emergency vehicles are coming in, that everyone is safe. But even though I'm here to help someone who may just be a big bully, I also don't trust them at all because bullies often need multiple lessons. And so we're gonna try and use a beast form here. We'll mark one of the few stress that I have left. And we're just going to kind of keep pace with him, see where he goes, see what he gets up to, see if he is trying to actually think about what we talked about, or if we need to finish this lesson.
You begin following him, taking to the air. And as you fly into the sky, this part of the adventure we will see another time. And with that, Austin, that is this episode of Duality. That was so great, and especially just to learn so much about you and just...
Yeah.
Learning about this, like getting to know everyone, I think is my favorite part of just fulfilling. And I know a lot of the viewers who are watching too. But speaking of viewers, Austin, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so I'm around places, a lot of the same Discord channels. So the Pocket Dimension and BladeBound Saga, I'm pretty active in. I occasionally drop into the Darrington Press and other Discords. But I've got my YouTube channel that I mentioned. It's called Javelin Entertainment. It's just a super hobby place. We go and play games. We live stream. You can always drop into the live streams and chat with us. Sometimes the audio doesn't work. Sometimes it does. But we're learning and growing. But it's been fun place to experiment, and we always enjoy having more people drop in. But yeah, Discord is usually the best place to get a hold of me and chat. And pay attention, because we will bring in those Queenslight games to those Discords here in the near future.
Yeah. Definitely pay attention. As soon as Queenslight releases, I'll definitely be promoting it, looking over it, giving my own review. It's all going to be good
Please
stuff.
do.
I'm super excited to see
Oh no, roast me.
how Queenslight is. But with that being said, don't forget to go over to Javelin Entertainment, subscribe over to their channel. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next episode of Duality, everyone. See ya.
From ink and steel, stories are forged. We are BladeBound Saga.